business news from the Capital Region. This is Washington Business Report with ABC7 national correspondent Rebecca Cooper.
And thanks for joining us for a look at business and finance issues here in the Washington region. You've heard the saying, you're not truly committed until you've got skin in the game. Well, that's not news to our first guest because her game is skin. Well known in Washington as the woman who makes the rich and powerful look good, she's used her medical know-how to build a worldwide business. Dr. Tina Alster is the founding director of the Washington Institute of Dermatologic Laser Surgery, and she helped Lancome develop some of its most coveted skincare products. Now she's launching a new line of her own. Tina Alster joins us today to talk about how one young dermatologist became one of the most recognizable businesswomen in the Washington area. Dr. Alster, thanks for joining us on Washington Business Report. So you are someone who has become quite well known in the Washington area. If any politicians are looking younger, people say maybe they've been to see Dr. Alster. Tell us your background. How did you get started so that you grew into such a large business?
Well, when I started the Washington Institute of Dermatologic Laser Surgery in 1990, it was the first freestanding laser center of such a nature in the world.
But so back us up to that. It was the first freestanding laser center in the world. So even before that, you were this young dermatologist. How did you grow into the person who could then start the first center in the world?
Well, you know, I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I was born in Washington, one of those rare commodities here. I grew up in the suburbs of Washington, graduated from high school, from public high school there, Montgomery Blair, went and did all my training elsewhere. Started down at Duke in North Carolina and then started up north at Yale, Penn, Harvard, and finished up there. Not bad, not bad.
But so many dermatologists then go develop a practice, and if they're successful, develop a thriving practice.
Right.
But you're well known throughout the world for not just having your own practice, but having several layers upon that business.
That's right. Well, my last stop in all that training was doing a fellowship in dermatologic laser surgery, and that was up in Boston. And at that time, there was really nobody doing lasers because the first lasers in dermatology were only being built then. And I was fortunate enough to be able to be at the beginning of that. In fact, I wrote the first textbook on cosmetic laser surgery in the early 90s as a consequence of being at the forefront of laser surgery. So when I came back to Washington, and everybody in medicine thought, what are you doing going to Washington? Because there's absolutely no good freestanding dermatology anything. It's not known as a medicine.
Hills,
no.
It's not LA. It's not known as a city that puts a premium on looks.
That's correct.
So why did you come back here even though it was home?
It's funny. It was really more for personal reasons than professional reasons. I had just met the man I eventually got married to, still married today, and he was a Canadian Foreign Service officer. And I thought one day this man who I just met in Boston is going to come to Washington and be posted here. Now, what's funny is it took us 5 years, and in that time period we were doing a lot of commuting, not only back and forth between Canada and the U.S., but he became ambassador to Czechoslovakia, so I was back and forth between Prague and Washington. So it was a long commute for many years. You can only do that when you're young, stupid, and in love. But I actually came here because I thought not only for him, but this was really an untapped market. There were certainly dermatologists here, but nobody was doing laser surgery. So I had to introduce lasers not only to the public, but to the doctors as well.
Now, let me point out, you look like a really successful client of a good dermatologist. You don't look like a wonky scientist, but you're taken very seriously in your field, and that's why Lancome and others have used you as a consultant. How did you get so well known beyond Washington?
Well, in fact, for many years, I was probably better known outside of Washington than in Washington. And the reason for that, it was really quite academic. I wrote the first textbook, as I already mentioned. I've written over 350 peer-reviewed medical journal articles.
Did you have a hard time as a woman being taken seriously in the field?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. Yes and yes. It was a very difficult climb. Number one, because I was starting something new, but also being a woman, I think it adds an extra layer of difficulty. Also, you know, I don't look like a typical doctor. Maybe in my profession now you see more people looking like me because we all have help. We all have great dermatologists. And so I do think it's difficult for a young woman, I was young back then, to get started in a business of her own. I have to say that there weren't many people who were that supportive of my efforts at the time because nobody really was doing just freestanding laser. But I believed in what I was doing, and the rest is history.
So let's fast forward to today. Now the Institute is on K Street, a showpiece really in the world of dermatology, very well known. You've been a consultant to the major cosmetic companies. So now you've decided, in addition to all this, to launch your own skincare line. Tell us about that, because usually in business you're looking for an untapped market. There are thousands of skincare products already on the market today. What makes you think you can break into that area?
Well, I'm not really going for the top of the pyramid, meaning that I'm not trying to do therapeutic skincare like so many of my colleagues. So I'm not trying to get rid of wrinkles. I'm not trying to get rid of acne with these topical regimens. What I'm trying to do is get everybody with a good at-home skincare program in a package that makes sense. When I see patients in my office, the first thing I ask them, outside of, do you have a history of skin cancer, or anybody in your family have a history of skin cancer, is what are you using on your skin? What has worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? And so many times...
This is why I'm not good about going to a dermatologist, because I'm afraid of the answer to that. We all just have a hodgepodge of
That's right. It's very, very confusing. It's confusing for me, and I'm in the business. I go into any grocery store or pharmacy, and you look at all the products, and no wonder people are confused. I'm a dermatologist, and I'm confused.
So the market you're aiming for, people who need it all in one. And then what's interesting to me, the new line also is targeted not just to women, but you've got a whole array of demographics.
That's right. What I've done is I've made kits of 3 to 4 items in each kit. I have Skin is In kits for men, so it's FaceTime for men, FaceTime for women, K-Zone for kids, T-Zone for teens. I even have a kit for sensitive skin, desensitized. And each of these kits have 3 or 4 things in them: a cleanser, a day moisturizer that has a non-chemical SPF, so therefore won't irritate the skin, and then an evening cream at the very least. And in this way, people don't have to worry, what cleanser do I use? What moisturizer?
Okay, lots of success behind the story of Tina Alster. Thanks for sharing it with us today. Who knew Washington could be one of the capitals of beauty and good skincare regime? Tina Alster, thanks for joining us on Washington Business Report. And stay tuned. Our spotlight on small business is a tale of 2 GW grads who turned groceries into what reviewers have dubbed an oasis. We'll tell you how after the break.